All right, I'm here with Mark Steinberg, and we are starting a new project here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Central Oregon called Getting to Know You. It's all about just getting to know the folks who are in our fellowship a little bit better through kind of that one-to-one process of just curious questions and giving someone a space to just let us learn a little bit more about them. And so Mark Steinberg has graciously agreed to be our first person that we are getting to know. Thank you, Mark, for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Good to be with you. I'm always happy to be a guinea pig.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is what we're doing here, the test run. And so Mark is our current board president this year, and we are grateful for that. He's been a member of the fellowship for 4.5 years. And so, yeah, let's just get to know you a little bit better, Mark. That's the whole idea of what we're getting at here. So,
Great.
Mark, where are you from? And like, where'd you grow up? And how did growing up there, wherever it might have been, kind of influence who you are as a person?
Yeah, I grew up down in the Torrance, Redondo Beach area of Southern California. If you're familiar with that area, it's southwest of LA, right on the beach there. I was born there. As a matter of fact, my whole family, my parents included, were all born in California. So I grew up there and grew up as a surfer boy. Just seemed kind of what you did when you were growing up as a teenager and younger, actually, in that area. So that's one of the strong memories I have from growing up and living there till I was about 19, and then went away to college at that point, and really haven't considered myself a resident of that area since then. But I lived in an all-white neighborhood, and I think thinking back on it, I have pretty strong white man's kind of background that I'm sure contributes a lot to who I am today. So it's been thought-provoking to go through that process that our congregation's been going through recently.
Sure. Yeah. So you grew up as a surfer boy, as you said. So did you have that experience? And can you describe this strangely, oddly spiritual thing people talk about when they're surfing? Did you have that experience? Was it something that was like deep in your bones?
I think so. I don't know if I would have described it like that when I was the kid, but anyway, yeah, I'm sure you've all heard of getting locked in the tube, but that's a pretty rare experience when you're on a particular wave and it's just curling over you and you're in there and you come out the other end, you're still riding the wave. That's a pretty amazing feeling, really. It stokes you. That's what I used to say.
Awesome. Yeah.
So that's a very strong memory, and just kind of a pure memory that I have from back in those days.
Wow, that's great. So I know that you are an agricultural consultant, and I don't know what that means. That sounds pretty broad. My guess is that you're consulting around agriculture. Can you give us a little more detail on what that actually looks like?
Well, it is broad, and that can mean lots of things, but I just need something to write down during those questionnaires about what your occupation is, and so that's what I put down. But I am trained as a plant pathologist. That's what I have my PhD in from the University of Arizona. There's actually a department of plant pathology there at the time. And I used that training to work in the private side of things for my entire career, which is pretty rare. Most people work for universities or industry, government as researchers, but I always have worked in private consulting, and more specifically, I've been called upon to investigate problems that have occurred usually in crop settings, larger agricultural settings, when a third party investigator is needed to help determine what caused a problem to occur, and oftentimes what the extent was of the problem, and ranging from anything you can imagine going on with a crop. So pretty broad spectrum of problems that I've investigated over the many years, and starting to tail that part of my career off right now.
Yeah. So what drew you into that originally? Like to get so into the life and health and around plants and plant life. What was it that originally drew you to that?
Well, I had a professor of mine when I was at Fresno State in the ag department there that was a plant pathologist, and I became his student, his master's student, went through the program there. He had a private consulting business going on the side. that he took me on cases with him at the time, and it interested me quite a bit. And so then going on to Arizona, he actually went there before me. I kept in touch with him. It just worked out that his private practice had grown to the point where he could bring me in as right after finishing up school into his practice. So I was able to jump right in as a private consultant. And,
Wow.
usually you have to work at something else for 20 years before you put the plaque up and say you're a consultant, but I kind of slipped right in there.
Right in. All right. So if you were to not overthink it, but what's a memory in your life that makes you smile? Just to think back, like what's the first one that comes to mind, like that made me smile.
I think that would be with my buddies in elementary school, going back to school after school on the field and playing over the line. I don't know if anybody here would be familiar with that, but it's a real simple baseball game. There's no running involved. You just have two members on each side. There's an imaginary infield line where the two defensive players are behind, and your own man is pitching you the ball, and you hit it usually with a fungal bat. Then you try to hit it over the fence, which is way out there. Sometimes windows were involved. We won't go into that too much here. But anyway, your runners are just imaginarily move around the bases as you got a hit or you got a home run.
Okay.
And that was just a fun time, just good kid stuff. And a lot of the people I played with ended up being great athletes. I wasn't one of them, but some of my buddies ended up being some of the stars of the teams in high school.
Great. So what's some of the best advice you ever received in your life? And who gave it to you?
Yeah, I don't have a memory of any specific piece of advice, but I think of my mom and dad really just showing us, my brother and sister and I, the way to live, just patterning our lives after theirs and the way they treated other people. I think they weren't the ones to just say, here's what I think and here's what you should do. It's here's what I do, watch me. And I think that is really probably the most important lesson I've been able to bring forward with me, is try to treat people kind of the old classic saying, as you would want to be treated.
Yeah, and that's a powerful kind of non-advice advice of just live your values, live who you are and who you want to be in the world, and let your actions speak louder than your words. Yeah.
They weren't religious people, being, Jewish background, culturally Jewish. There's a lot of Jews that would define themselves the same way. We follow the holidays and that type of thing. And there was some Yiddish spoken around the family, but they didn't observe, and they didn't really have us observe much. And my dad he considered himself an atheist, and my mom an agnostic. But I think if you really pinned them down and if they understood what Unitarian Universalism was, they might actually kind of fit into that category of faith. And that's the way I kind of came about it also. I didn't know much about it until I finally went to a service back in the late 80s in California.
Yeah, right. So I know when you came here to Bend in Central Oregon, you had already been a Unitarian Universalist and already been involved in your congregation there. So what was your entry into your first Unitarian Universalist church like? What was that for you?
It was great. Just really wonderful people, and very similar feeling as to what we have here in Bend. Also, just it's all about the people and sharing experiences and helping each other along on our individual pathways. And, that is really strong, wonderful feeling to have, and to feel part of something bigger than we as individuals is a big driving force, and that keeps the energy high and keeps you going forward.
Yeah, great. So Mark, what is something that we don't know about you, like something hidden, like a hidden talent or something from your past that we just wouldn't know in regular conversation or by looking at you?
Well, yeah, I used to be 6 foot tall. No, that's my wish. Yes, really. No, kind of a weird thing. I don't know if this will go or not be edited, but I might as well put it out there. I actually am a Mason.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody really knows what that means, but it was a weird time. I didn't
So,
ever do anything with it, but I went through the process and officially became a Mason. Um,
so for those who are less familiar with that, like, can you expound a little bit on that? Like, what does that mean, or what was that process to the extent that you can tell us? Because I gather it's a secret process, but
you can
what
find
was
out
that?
about it on you can Google it if you
Okay.
want to. It's supposed to be secret, but it's really pretty bizarre when you get right down to it. Very, very strange ceremonies that you go through, process. But it's a real bonding. It's
Uh-huh.
eternal kind of type of thing. It's a bit of a patriarchy, but I was in search of another organization that I could grow with, and I had some friends that were Masons, so they kind of convinced me to give it a try.
Oh,
There you
interesting.
are.
There you are. All right. Mark is a Mason, as well as many other things. Mark, what's something that you're thankful for?
That's a pretty long list.
It is, I'm
Of
sure. Right.
course, I'm going to say my family for sure.
Hmm.
I told Scott earlier that we just had a visit for a week from my daughter and my son-in-law, and that they're the first family we've seen since well before the pandemic started because we don't live nearby to anyone. So that really brought it home pretty strongly that we really have missed having contact with our family. We have 3 grandkids down in California, and my son has his own family with 3 kids. So it's kind of tough in that regard, but I am very thankful that we can stay in touch with them and still kind of watch kids grow up in some fashion. Um, Marilyn, my wife, she's really wonderful to have as a partner, and we've been together now for 36 years, I think it is.
Wow.
Don't quote me on that, but it's close to that number. So, yeah, she's outside doing gardening right now, and that's one of her big passions. So I'm really
Yeah.
thankful for that. And of course, serving as president of the board really gives me a lot of reasons to be thankful. It's challenging for sure, given what we're all dealing with here, but it's really been, it's given me a lot more than I've ever could imagine giving back to the congregation. Just energizing and seeing how everybody's working together and trying to stay connected is empowering. So I'm very thankful for the church.
Great. All right, Mark. We are aiming to keep these videos around 10 minutes or somewhere around that so that folks don't get overwhelmed by them. But I got one more question for you. It's a seasonal question. I know that as board president, you have invited at tonight's board meeting all of the board members to come in costume. So this is a two-part question. What is the costume that you'll be showing up to at the board meeting this evening? And thinking back in your life, obviously as someone who has enjoyed costumes or Halloween, it's at some level. What is a Halloween costume from your past that stands out as one of your most favorite costume experiences?
Well, for today's board meeting, it's not going to be a surprise to you now, Scott, but I'm going to be dressed as kind of a hardcore biker type. And that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But in the past, I had a great Halloween party when I was a student in Arizona and Tucson, where I dressed up as a sports jock, and I had every kind of baseball, football, uh, gloves, tennis racket, all hooked on to my body somehow or another. So I was like an all around jock.
Nice. Fantastic. Well, great, Mark. Thank you so much for being our first person, being our guinea pig, as you said it. I'm really excited about this project, just as a way for our fellowship to continue to get to know new folks, get to learn about one another, and connect, as we're trying to do over this course of the year, just find new ways and interesting ways to connect. So really grateful to you. Thank you for your time, and it was good to get to know you just a little bit better. Thank you very much, Mark.
Appreciate it, Scott. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.